Alright guys, welcome to the Board Game Geek Beginners Tournament. I'm your caster here, Jess, and we're here today with Moosemcd and Dreadpiratelynx. Moose will be playing Court first, and he's going to be Weyland with Building a Better World, and Dreadpirate will be playing Anarch as Noise. So, let's see what we got here. Corp has a 5 ice starting hand, that's interesting. Probably would keep this just because he's got the Ice Wall and Enigma. Wall Static Data Raven, very solid. Probably get something doing with that Archer later on, probably draw into some economy. Meanwhile, our runner he's chosen the Mulligan. This isn't a bad opening hand, but he could probably get something better. Like to see Wildside first turn if you're Anarch, if he's running it, of course. And he sees a different hand, so he's running Personal Touches here, that's interesting. And he's also using Infiltrations. It looks like our corporation players also decided to mulligan into what I feel is a worse hand. But if he can protect that melange, well, he'll be rolling in the cash. Looks like we're about to get underway, so let's do it. Oh, mandatory draw shows another melange. Our corporation player is going to have to bluff here. I would like to see the Wall of Static go on to R&D, because there's nothing more dangerous than having a Noise with medium just run on your R&D all day long. And that's really the only ice he can res right at the moment. Alternatively, he could bluff something. He's going to lay down the melange first, and this is a bold play. He might even want to put the Wall of Static in front of it, which is, not a bad idea if he can make it pay off. It looks like he's going to be putting the Wall of Static over his HQ, which I don't really agree with. There's always the threat of Imp, but I think both the melange and the R&D are way more important here. We'll see what he does with his last click. And sure enough, he shifts the Wall of Static over to the remote server. I think this is a strong play. He's going to go for an economic opening. I'd definitely like to see the Hadrians go down on to R&D. I don't know if he's using Oversight AI. Probably is. But you don't want to draw into something like that. Whereas if he gets the Hadrians down and one turn of melange off, he'll be able to res it. I just tried to add a remote server, but it didn't let me do it. I hope I didn't break the game. Seems like it's okay. And I wonder what he's mulling over. Laying down that archer would be nice if he catches someone later, but he chooses to draw on his last click. I definitely don't like this. He's left all of his centrals wide open to attack here. And really, he's just lucky that there's no medium in Noise's starting hand. We'll see what our runner decides to do here. You gotta think that you just want to run. Force them to res that ice. He won't be able to get in. But, making the corp spend money is never a bad thing. And by the way, he's targeting this card. It looks like he wants to expose it. And I don't like this early game. Face checking ice when you've got nothing on the board really doesn't hurt you so much. The worst thing that could happen, really, is a Neural Katana. And that's it's manageable. He's got some nice cards in his opening hand, and the infiltration means that he's going to be safe from that. But still, like in this situation, you kind of want to just run that remote and see if they will actually res the Wall of Static. He opts to take a credit and lay down liberated account. I think he'll probably either draw or just take some money. So really, he's given the Corp the best of both worlds here. He hasn't run R&D even though it's wide open. He hasn't run HQ even though it's wide open. And he does choose to run HQ at the end. Unfortunately for him, there's really nothing going on in HQ. He might see the melange, but he doesn't even have a credit to trash it. So he's going to get just some information out of this, which isn't a bad thing. He'll know that there's going to be some big ice in hand. Archer is always scary. Good to know that they've got it available. And he sees a melange and can't trash it. That was really the worst possible draw. Every other thing in his hand would have given him at least some information that he could have worked with on later turns. And also, running has opened him up to a potential Sea-Source Scorch with 0 credits and 3 cards in hand. So it's quite dangerous. But he won't be punished for it just yet. Our Corp, though, he's got a Wall of Static that's looking pretty good right now, and a melange. Drawing into that Enigma is really good. It's scary to res the melange and use it here, because again, you're leaving R&D open. But the runner didn't take advantage of it last turn, so you gotta wonder if he's going to take advantage of it again next turn. Better not to roll the dice, I think, and to put down some ice. The Enigma on R&D and the Shadow onto HQ really sets you up for the future. Take a credit, get some cards out of your hand, and then start using that melange. Because the biggest disadvantage of melange is that it's a triple click. You gotta use your entire turn, and cards tend to pile up in HQ, and then you have to start discarding. A situation you don't really want to be forced into. You could even potentially play 3 cards here. Shadow down, get the Enigma down, and a Hadrian's are an Archer on the Archives. So we're playing against noise after all. You want to protect it. So he's opted to put Shadow on R&D, and this isn't a bad play. Enigma could get broken by Yogg and become useless, but Shadow is pretty annoying, and since our runner is using resources, he's not going to want to let tag stick, and furthermore it's Weyland, you're not going to want to let tag stick. Second, he draws a card. I wonder what he's fishing for. So he sees another Enigma. I gotta feel that the best play is to just put this on Archives or HQ for later use. Enigma is very strong early game ice. People generally don't play the Yogg first and then face check into an Enigma. Making them lose a click can give you a small advantage. He's got to play something. And sure enough, he'll use one of his Enigmas, and he'll opt to put it on top of R&D. So he's got good R&D protection, but again, the order of this ice is, I feel, all wrong. If you res the Enigma, then he doesn't hit the Shadow, you don't get the trace and the credits. If you swap the position around, much more effective, I think. So our runner is going to opt to start using that liberated account, play a Data Sucker down, and he will nab a Corporate Troubleshooter. He'll then opt to run HQ and get a Data Sucker token. It's interesting to see Corporate Troubleshooter here. It's really made a resurgence lately with fixed strength breakers being the new thing. Archer and Corporate Troubleshooter was a very dangerous combo from Core, and it's becoming quite popular again. Noise is going to opt to run Archives here and see the card that he just trashed. I don't like this because you've only put 1 card there. He's got 2 cards in hand. It's pretty scary. He's got a liberated account with 3 clicks left on it. Definitely would like to see him put a little bit more into archives before you start running there. Our corp is going to draw into a hedge fund. And now he's wishing he had 5 credits, I'm sure. And this goes back to the way he played his ice last turn. Is that playing that extra ice on top of it wasn't probably the best idea. He's going to opt to cover archives now. And he's going to put the Hadrians down on his HQ. Big ice on HQ, cheap ice on archives. I like this play. Keeping them out of archives when they've got no breakers is better than keeping them out of an HQ that's currently not doing anything for you. And he'll opt to take a credit with his last click. Now our corp player is actually in a pretty decent spot. The runner hasn't made a move on that remote, so he hasn't been forced to res the wall of static. So as far as the runner can see right now, he thinks it's probably just some upgrade, maybe something that'll help him out later. With all this ice on the board, our runner's probably not feeling too confident about making a run. I'll opt to draw and take some money. Sees an E3 feedback. So between the E3 and the personal touch, gotta think he's using Darwin. Makes a lot of sense with that kind of support. And he'll draw into a Grimoire and put it down. It's always good to get that early before you've played too many viruses. Corp player draws into his first agenda of the game, Priority Requisition. At this point, I'd honestly like to see him just res that melange and use it. The hedge fund is nice, but better to use it on a turn when you can kind of make a play with your other 2 clicks. Even if he uses the hedge fund right now, he doesn't really have a whole lot going on. It's 5 cards in hand, so using the melange won't force him to discard. And later on, he might be able to get some archers down. He might draw into something on his next turn. So we'll see what he opts to do. He will use the hedge fund. And so to follow this up, I'd like to see... Well, he'll draw, and he sees another Hadrian. So lots of big ice for our corporation friend here. Putting that down on top of the remote is, I think, pretty strong. Either the Hadrians, I think, is stronger. Ideally, you want to have at least 2 ice on a server before you start going for an agenda score, because inside job is always a possibility. Of course, having a lot of big ice makes it pretty difficult to res, so probably not what he was looking for. Then he will opt to take a credit with his final action. So at this point, that melange is really doing nothing for him. He's laid it down turn 1 and gotten nothing for it over the past several turns. So I wonder when he's going to make his move, because now if he uses it next turn, he'll have to discard. Our runner is just sitting pretty. He's got money, he's got cards, he sees the Jin. Definitely nice. He can now tutor for any viruses he wants. Getting this out early is definitely a good call. Unfortunately, if he searches for a virus, it'll be on his last click, and I definitely don't like doing that because you reveal what it is you're looking for, and the corp will see that. Gives the corp a little bit of time to set up. They may or may not be able to do something about it, but no need to give them extra information. He will opt to do it though and pull Darwin. I don't think this is a bad play. Your Corp has got to know you're going to use a breaker, and so now he just knows it's going to be Darwin. With the E3, Ice Carver, and Personal Touch in hand, he's definitely got support for that Darwin. He just needs to set up his rig a bit more. Corp is going to lay down the Hadrians on a new remote server. And he's going to put a priority requisition down there as well. Finally, he'll put an archer on top of HQ. This is a tricky situation. If the runner runs on that remote, he's going to have to res that Hadrians. And then he won't even have 1 credit left to res the Melange to gain some money on the next turn. This is a tough spot for our Corp player. But our runner is probably not feeling too confident, seeing as he has no breaker on the board. Roto turret is always scary. Face checking certain ice can really hurt you. He doesn't know what's there, he just sees a lot of ice on the board. But he picked up his breaker last turn, and now it's actually looking good that he did that, because it's in hand. He doesn't need to waste a click searching for it now. Playing the Darwin and a Personal Touch on it right away makes it pretty strong, especially with those data sucker tokens. He's got a reasonable shot of getting in somewhere. Of course, he will lay down the Darwin, putting a hostile takeover into archives. First agenda there. Corp probably not happy about that. Definitely want to score those when you can. It's a great agenda for Weyland, even with the bad publicity. The question is, will he run? And with the Darwin out, 2 data sucker tokens, I gotta think that it is the right choice. There's a lot of low-cost dice that might hurt you, but not with Darwin out, and he's got the money for it. Still, it would be expensive if he had to break something. Potential reward, though, might get that agenda. He'll opt to put down the Ice Carver. Just a great thing to get out early for sure. It'll save you a lot of money in the long run. Now here, I almost don't want him to run. Running on the last click is always scary. It could be an Ichi. That would really ruin his day right now. Or it could be something that you maybe don't want to go through, like a Data Raven. Of course, he would have the option to jack out there, but running on the last click is not a good idea generally. If it's a snare, you get punished. Bernice Ma, you get punished. We'll see what he opts to do. And it seems like he's going to go for it, and this is the right choice for him, although he's definitely feeling a little shaky about it based on his comment. So our Corp has got to res it, and that's going to bankrupt him. He will end the run, however, but this is a big tell that there is something there he wants to protect. And with no credits, no matter what it is, he can't do anything with it. A couple runs on some centrals that he probably will get through for free next turn will give him the data sucker tokens necessary to get through that Hadrian's, if he does it just right. Of course, he is a little bit low on money. Well, now that I look at it, actually, Hadrian's is strong protection, but it simply won't stand up over 2 turns, thanks to the money situation on the runner side. Darwin is expensive. That E3 really makes a difference, and cyber feeders really help too. Our core player will draw into another agenda, Project Atlas. And he's really in a tough spot here. I think his only and best move is to just click 3 times for credits. Well, it's times like these that, as the runner, you need to know when to be aggressive. With the corp in such a bad economic position. All that ice on the board is basically useless. He probably can't res it, even if it's an ice wall, forcing them to spend the money to res something like that. You may or may not want to break it, but keeping the corp down on money is a strong strategy, and it's why cards like Account Siphon are so powerful, because of the swinging credits it provides. Just resing ice is expensive stuff for the corp. Well, of course, it's a permanent investment, but sometimes you really wish you had the money for other things. And so now, not using that melange for so many turns is really unfortunate, because that Darwin is going to eat a wall of static for breakfast. Our runner will draw into a parasite. He's going to love seeing that. I definitely put that parasite down on the Hadrians right away. No real reason not to. It's a big piece of ice. Might as well neutralize it. And sure enough, it looks like he will do that. Now let's see what he dropped. Knocked a Scorched Earth into Archives. This is great. He'll draw into an Armitage. Draw again into a Cyber Feeder. So our runner is getting decent draws here. He's got no credits, so I feel his next turn is going to be gaining a credit, putting down the Armitage, and gaining more money. But things are looking good for the runner. Corp is not in a great position to score. And he draws into another Archer. I'd really like to see him use that melange now, and sure enough. There we go. Our Corp player is right back in this. He's got the money to res anything on the board, and our runners can't be happy about seeing that there. So with no credits, he can't activate Darwin, which is unfortunate. It's why getting a Cyber Feeder out first is so good, but he didn't have it at the time. I'd like to see him use the Armitage and then gain the put out the Cyber Feeder. Excellent. This is an efficient use of actions. He's setting up for next turn to keep pumping that Darwin for free and not lose any real credits in the long run. Our Corp player is now in a bind. He's got a Hadrian's and it's looking pretty strong, but it's got a Parasite on it, and there are 2 Data Sucker tokens already on the board. If he doesn't clear soon, then he'll just let the runner get into that server for free by trashing the ice. That said, all of his centrals are decently protected. The Corp will draw into an Enigma. Enigma is actually not so bad against Darwin. Our Corp will opt to triple click instead. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I think a triple click on money would have been better spent. The Enigma you can trash, not a big deal. Everything else is pretty strong. He's seen all 3 of his archers. Maybe getting rid of one of them is not a big deal, because you're probably only going to res 1 or 2 of them throughout the game. And Dreadpirate has an excellent question. And so this is something that may not seem intuitive at first, but when you encounter a piece of ice that has a parasite on it, when the runner encounters the ice, they choose to break subroutines first, according to the timing structure. And as part of that, they can use paid abilities, such as the Data Sucker tokens. If they spend the Data Sucker tokens on the ice to reduce its strength to the point where a parasite has made it strength 0, well, that ice is now trash because it's strength 0, and the runner never has to break the subroutines. Noise Ice Destruction, quite scary. Our runner will draw into a Surge. I like Surge. I think it's a good card. I can understand why some people don't use it, but it's a nice little surprise factor, and for 0 cost, you really can't go wrong. Take some money, and I'll put a personal touch on Darwin, making that Darwin real scary. Every turn, effectively, it's going to have a strength of 3 to start because of the personal touch, Cyber Feeder, and the Ice Carver. even if a virus purge occurs. Draws into another parasite. Love seeing that early. Meanwhile, our corporation is drawn into a posted bounty. So, HQ is getting a little crowded here. I think using the melange and trashing an Enigma is probably his best play. You need a lot of money, or he can start advancing that priority requisition. Either one, I think, are good options here. The Darwin is not going to get through that Hadrian's Wall just yet. Or at least that's what he thinks. It's possible through some shenanigans with Surge that he might be able to get in if he gets a successful run on a Central. Actually, just the Surge will be enough. But then you're paying to break it instead of trashing it. So he's going to opt to put the Archer down onto the remote. Probably wants to use priority requisition. And I think a double advance here is the right choice. So runner's going to be scared, but little does he know, if he just runs that server, that ice can't be rezzed. A free Archer is always great. Classic combo from the core set. Really tough to deal with. Forcing the Corp to sacrifice that agenda is really prohibitive in the long run, even if it's a hostile takeover. You know, every agenda point matters. Our runner draws into his second copy of E3, so that's just pretty much a dead card, but getting through his deck a bit faster. Let's take a look at archives again. Yeah, you trashed Archer last turn. I kind of missed that. Runner draws into another Armitage, so he's good on money for a while. He draws again, knowing that he can just discard an E3. Sees another Djinn. That's not really helping him that much at this point. One is usually enough, especially with Grimoire out. Our Corp draws into a Scorched Earth, and so now the question is, does he have 3 copies, since one is in the archives? 2 is usually enough to flatline someone, without Plasticrete, of course. But even with Plasticrete, sometimes people forget that it's only 4 damage worth of protection, and they go below 3, or below 4 rather, and find themselves in a bit of trouble. I think scoring the priority requisition here is the right choice. There's plenty of stuff to get rid of in hand that's not really useful at this point. I think getting rid of the Enigma is the right choice. And fun fact, if you shift target and ice before you score priority requisition, it will automatically res it at no cost. Somehow Moose is showing as a -1 clicks, but I think that'll get resolved as soon as he ends his turn. So that Archer is rezzed for free. And this is unfortunate, but our runner has another Parasite in hand. So I imagine that Parasite's going to go right onto that Archer. And he opts to discard his second copy of Melange. Not a bad call, except that with only one on the board, there's a potential it can get trashed. Our runner hasn't seen Keen to run there in the past. Probably not going to run there in the future. Still, having a little bit of redundancy isn't bad, and I think the Enigma is more or less useless at this point. Darwin, with the personal touch and the Ice Carver, just is never going to get stopped by Enigma, only if he doesn't have the credits. Darwin gets stronger. Sure enough, he's going to play the Parasite down onto that Archer. Definitely the right choice here. That remote is suddenly not looking so scary. Lays down his E3. And that last install got another agenda. So 3 points of agendas in the archives. I don't like this. I think he's going to surge that Parasite. Ah, he's trying to host it. And as I said in the chat, so Jin and Parasite have a kind of negative interaction in that you can't host in 2 places at once. It's balanced and fine, but it's something that may not seem obvious at first glance, because Jin is there to host all your viruses, of course. Still, our runner isn't really having any memory problems. He's got 5 of his 6 memory out, but he's got a Jin. And really, there's not a whole lot else he can use to fill out his suite at this point. He's going to opt to run on archives. And with no credits, he can't get through that Enigma. So it'll end the run. But now, the Corp has spent the 3 credits on the Enigma. And the runner's got to think, there's something there he doesn't want me to see. And Corp draws into a wall of static. I think his only real option here is to triple click Melange. Yep. And you could trash. I think the Enigma is better to trash. Though, Enigma has a nice little interaction that you force the runner to run on the last click unless they want to be inefficient with how they break. And running on the last click is always dangerous. Any way that you can control how your opponent acts on their turn, even in a small way like that, can make a difference. He will opt to trash the Enigma, and I can't say I disagree with that. So at this point for the runner, he's going to start his turn. Those parasites are going to have a lot of money on them, or a lot of counters on them. As the runner, you think, okay, is the Corp going to purge viruses next turn? Should I bother trying to up them using that surge or running other servers? If you think a purge is coming, then you definitely don't want to be doing things like adding a Crypsis counter, for example. I've definitely had that happen where I've had a nice set of viruses on the board, lots of counters everywhere, lay down a Crypsis, and put a counter on Crypsis, preparing for a run next turn. But then I get wiped, and so that was a wasted action. He's going to opt to draw, and clean out his Armitage code busting. And then he will run last click against the Enigma and Archives. And notice, our runner opted not to use Cyber Feeder to pump Darwin this turn, and I think that is a correct choice. This way he's getting in to Archives for 1 credit instead of for 2. He doesn't need extra strength to break the Enigma, and he's really not going anywhere else, so I think this is a good choice. He'll get a Data Sucker token out of it, but as I was saying before, this is probably not going to last, as those parasites are just way too juicy. virus purge is most likely coming. For his trouble, we'll get 3 points out of the archives, and that's odd. So it's showing that Noise did not find any agendas in the archives, but that's not the case. Let's rectify this situation. So this is another point, actually. Anytime a runner accesses an agenda, they must steal it, and the only time they can't is when there's some other additional cost associated with it. For example, red herrings, when you do have the money to pay for the red herrings, or fetal AI. There. So it looks like we're going to get it resolved. It's pretty strange. I've never seen that happen before. Though recently, with all the updates, maybe it's something that slipped through the cracks. Just as a note, though, especially when playing online or in real life, anytime you run corporation archives, even if you don't score any agendas, it's sometimes you just want to see what cards they've discarded. Knowing what's there can give you a better idea about what's in their deck. So our corp draws into a priority requisition, but as expected, he's going to triple click and clean all the viruses. He'll have to discard something, but at this point I really feel like he's in a strong position. Darwin just doesn't cut it without enough supports. Now, fortunately, he's got a lot of support here. Ice Carver, Personal Touch, gotta think he's running more than one Personal Touch. And those Parasites, even though he's got all that though, that Archer and Hadrian's is tough to get through. And he's got a turn to start preparing, so we'll see. That Surge, I think, is gonna really surprise the corporation when he decides to play it out. He lays down a Cyber Feeder, puts down the Armitage, and draws twice. He's got no credits, but he's got a full hand. We'll see what our corporation player wants to do with this. He bought himself some time, and this is pretty nice. Scoring. So what I'd like to see right now, actually, is to lay down the priority requisition and double advance. He probably has enough breathing room to push through an agenda. And if he scores the priority requisition, then he can score the hostile takeover from hand on the following turn, winning him the game. Let's see what he opts to do. I think playing an agenda here is the aggressive and smart play. Sometimes you just gotta go for it, and even though those parasites are ticking time bombs, well, I think he's gonna go for it. I like this. Lays down the priority requisition. I like to see a double advance here. Notice something though, our runner, he hasn't gone after R&D, archives, R&D, HQ, or that remote with Melange. There's a lot of unrezzed ice on the board and potentially a lot of free looks at cards. Because without the money to pay for it, they aren't doing anything for you. Our runner, though, he's not in the greatest of board states. He's got the cyber feeders out, so he's got some virtual credits to play with. He's got an Armitage out, so with enough money, he can get through somewhere this turn. Unfortunately, the Archer is really tough to get through with Darwin. Even with the E3, it's still going to be expensive. Granted, it will be actually more efficient compared to other breakers in general, like Ninja, for example, breaks Archer for 10, and that's kind of the gold standard against Archer. It's because with Mimic and Darwin and such, you need other types of supports. So if you just want to go breaker versus Ice, and Ninja is pretty good. Fairy will get through better, but Fairy's a one-cost thing or one-time thing. Well, let's see what our runner decides to do. He's got an infiltration in hand. The problem is, if he infiltrates what's in that server, it's a valuable click that won't get him into that server. You do the math, he can probably get in if he just plays his cards right. That Surge on Darwin gets him in, but he just doesn't have the money to break through all those subroutines. It's a sticky situation. It's funny because actually the best thing you could do is to try to run somewhere else and force the corp to go below 3 credits so that he can't triple advance. It seems like our runner wanted to do something there, something more than just taking money, but at the end of the day, he figured that's what he could do. Small mistake, that's going to cost him big here. Our corp draws into a shadow, and that's totally expendable at this point. Scoring the priority requisition gives him 6 points, and honestly, a sure win, because it's quite unlikely that hostile takeover is going to get pulled out of HQ. Even better if he reses the Archer on HQ, but that would almost telegraph that he's got something in his hand to go after. Still, it's the strongest dice on the board, and I think it's the right choice. No one's going to be surprised that you're using priority requisition to res an Archer. Scores and reses. This is almost certainly game for our corporation player. We'll see if our runner can make some kind of Hail Mary happen on his last turn. So again, he hasn't run R&D, and these are both 3-cost dice that our corporation cannot res this turn. Going after R&D would be a strong play here. It's really his only play. But with 4 agendas on the board and 2 more in hand, or 3 more in hand, there's probably not too many agendas left. In fact, there should be 4 left in the deck, yeah. Usually people will use, well, he might be using 1 over the normal with 2 posted bounties instead of just 1. With 49 card deck, it could go either way. It's almost certainly got 1 more priority rec, 1 more hostile, 1 more atlas. Our runner will draw. You'll see another surge. He's probably wishing he had that earlier. And there's just not a lot he can do right now. He'll opt to use Infiltration to gain 2, then draw a card. Sees an Imp. And Imp's not going to do him much good. He'll play the Imp. Drop a static into Archives. No big deal. And it's almost poetic how our corp has only 2 credits left, and that's just enough. And sure enough, our corp has 3 Scorched Earths, but doesn't matter. He'll lay down the hostile takeover, advance twice, and close this game out. So overall, I feel like our runner simply wasn't aggressive enough. He only ran once, where it really mattered, when that Hadrian's got rezzed. And our court player, well, he made a lot of good plays, honestly. He managed to hold on through what looked like a pretty tough spot. We'll see you in the next game.